Hey, thanks for joining us again on episode 112 of the Clive Barker podcast. Today's episode is Tonight Again, Tales of Love, Lust, and Everything in Between, which is fitting for releasing this episode on Valentine's Day. So before we get into it, I do want to thank Jordy Calendar. That's Jorte Calendar. That is a calendar app on your iPhone or Android phone. So it's either you can get it either on iOS or Android, which I'm guessing 99% of people out there have one of those two phones. And it syncs with your pre-existing calendars. So if you already have like the Apple Calendar, like we used to in the old days, we used to call it iCal. It will sync with that, or it can sync with your Google Calendar, so you don't have to start all over again. You just tell it, you give it access to your calendar events, and it'll put those right in there. They've also got something called Jordy Cloud, so that's a service that a cloud service that automatically backs up your calendar. Another neat thing about them is they've got customizable icons, themes, wallpapers, and Jordy Calendar is also a diary app, so you can use it for note-taking and diaries and stuff too, which is different from your normal calendar. It's kind of cool. And you can follow events. So, like for instance, you can see when your favorite sport team is playing next, or for horror fans, you can stay up to date with horror movie news because Shock Till You Drop submits events and stuff to them also. So to add them, you just go into your calendar, and in the lower left toolbar in Jordy, you tap on the event calendar and browse and search and see what kind of events you want to follow. So we'd love you to give Jordy a try. It's free to buy, but you can customize it with in-app purchases. It's spelled Jorte in the Apple Store or Google Play. And you please, if you're going to do that, use our custom link, and that's bit.ly/pinheadcalendar. Pinhead Calendar is all one word, and we'll have a link for this in the show notes on our website at www.clivebarkercast.com, as well as a banner ad for Jordy Calendar there you'll find it either on the side or on the bottom, depending on the time of the month. I'll repeat that again, bit.ly/Pinhead Calendar. So it was nice of them, we got to give us a custom URL and track to see how many people are downloading it through that link. All right, so again, back to episode 112 is Tonight Again, Tales of Love, Lust, and Everything in Between. And we were originally going to be talking with Ben Mears over at Seraphim Films because the book is dedicated to him, and I have a feeling that he did a lot of the work assembling, editing, and putting together choosing the stories and vignettes to go into this book. And we think that they all fit together perfectly, and we talked about we should have him on here, but he had some last minute things come up, and we tried a couple of times and it just didn't work out, so we wanted to get this out on Valentine's Day, so we did. So yeah, here we go, episode 112. Here we are. We haven't had an actual episode in a little while. I think we've done a couple of commentaries.
Yeah, we have. We did the last one. Hellseeker, and that's right, Rob. We did a news episode.
Yeah, so, and before that, 2015 in review, and we've done. This year how many commentaries have we done now? I think 3, maybe.
Inferno, Hellseeker, and Candyman: Day of the Dead. Was that still in December? I forgot.
I can't remember.
You meant...
Yeah. I just meant like 2016.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So watch out for those. They're in there in the feed. If you get this podcast through iTunes or through one of the subscription feeds, then you should have those already.
And give us any feedback on them.
Yeah,
let us know what we can do better.
They're fun to do, but and actually we had discovered that I think that Hellseeker wasn't as bad as we all felt.
Remembered
about
it.
Yeah.
No, I don't have a problem with Hellseeker. I really don't. After what we watched again, there are problems with the movie, but overall, I don't have a problem with it personally.
Yeah.
True. I said the same in the commentary that I actually kind of some of the things I used to think about the movie, it kind of softened with time, and then I saw the movie again preparing for the commentary, and I was like, you know what? It's not as bad as, say, Dead or Hell World, because at least the fake dream sequences and the constant waking up, and it's like, oh, it's a completely different scene now. At least it makes sense in the context that the character had like been through a car crash and he was having like headaches and blackouts. So that kind of, in context, it kind of worked a little bit, I guess, although it's still a little confusing. But then the other following movies, sometimes it's just really like when Amy, what was the name of the reporter in Deader? Amy Klein or something?
Yeah, you're right, Amy Klein.
When Amy Klein goes to the Deader house and she has to go through this like corridor that's getting narrower and narrower and narrow, and then she looks back and there's someone with a knife and they stab her and she wakes up and it's like, okay, that was completely random. It just takes a different direction. Stuff like that is more confusing, I would say. But,
yeah. Well, and they all did that to an extent, but it seemed like Deader was like more surreal and they didn't ever get around to explaining what's real and what's not real.
Yeah.
I mean, y'all read the original script on that one. I never read the original script.
Yeah, Jose did. I don't know. I didn't read it. We just talked about it when we.
I don't know how much different it is. So
it's very different.
Oh, it is.
The one that doesn't have any Hellraiser elements.
It's different.
It's really weird. It's about this cult thing, and there's still that one guy who brings people from the dead. And I'll save some of this for the commentary. But it's really weird. The ending is different. Instead of Pinhead, she finds this void where there's this butcher guy that follows her around with knives and stuff. So, I could see how they thought that they could squeeze in some Hellraiser into that, but it was a different movie to be sure. Yeah.
And what else have we got on the site? I think recently, Jose, you posted the first of your series of Let's Play videos for Clive Barker's Jericho.
Yeah, I got to post the second one. Thanks. Like I said, like episode 111 was called "Sometimes I Shoot My Own Team." I do shoot some of the members of the Jericho Squad in my first video, and I think it's either black or shirts.
You said they say something. Comment to you. What do they say?
The priest guy with the mustache says, "Are you fresh out of boot camp, soldier?"
Yeah.
And I think it's either church or black says, "Watch where you're shooting, douchebag." She actually says that. Yeah. So, I got to post a second one. Good reminder there. And I'm sure I'll do that maybe even over this weekend, even though it's Valentine's Day weekend.
Oh, yeah. Happy Valentine's to all our listeners.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're going to have an episode about erotic fiction for Valentine's Day.
That worked out nicely.
Yeah. And we did talk online about having Ben Mears for this episode. But for scheduling reasons, he had to cancel. So we may talk to him. And we've had him on before. We may talk to him again later on. But we'll just talk about this book. And Rob, before we get into that, you did a review, I think, right?
Yeah, Peter Atkins, his Cemetery Dance Select. It's a publishing company where they ask authors to pick some of their most personal or favorite stories that they think needs a second look. And I purchased that through, it's an ebook, and I read those. There's about 4 stories, and they're I highly recommend getting that. So if you want to get into Peter Atkins stuff, I think that's a good place to start for, to kind of ease your way into his world.
Yeah, I've never read any of his books, but he was really great to talk to. So I'm kind of interested in supporting him and seeing what his writing is like.
You gave his book 9.5 out of 10, so sounds pretty good. I got it on Kindle too, so I'm going to read that.
Cool. He's really good with short story writing, and that's what I've been reading a lot of that lately. Or we all have, really. I mean, you read Voices of the Damned by Barbie Wilde, and I've really become a fan of that format of storytelling, and that's what really this book is: short stories and poems, and
And you also did a review of Barbie Wilde's Voices of the Damned.
Yeah. Really, sorry for not doing that. Put that out, I had notes for it for the longest time, but I just never got around to it because it's a Kickstarter,
Oh, yeah. You should put that into Amazon, too. I think that's what she wants us.
I did. I did.
Oh, awesome.
And
excellent.
I was, I enjoyed that book. I gave it an 8.5 out of 10, so that's a very positive review. I kind of, put in the review, I had some reservations about some of the content, but that was just personal taste. Mm-hmm. Overall, the book was, very solid, and she's a great writer. I would like to go get more into her work as well.
Did you ever read...
What's the book she released before that?
Venus Complex.
I have not. I need to.
Okay. Yeah, Venus Complex is amazing.
Okay.
It's an actual novel.
Yeah, and it's much different from Voices of the Damned.
Oh, okay. So it's not like a short story collection or
no.
It's actual linear story.
It's a novel, but it's not super long.
Yeah.
I read it in Paris when I was visiting Paris to visit the American Embassy in my process to get my visa to come to the U.S. So it was interesting that Barbie lives in Paris. I got the book in Portugal. Took it with me to Paris.
Yeah, you could have gone over to her house and sat in her house and read it.
I guess. That would have been wonderful.
Yeah, she would have let you.
Yeah.
And Ryan, speaking of short stories, you posted your own short story.
Yeah.
Jerry's
that's right.
Left Hand.
Yeah,
it's great stuff.
Reluctantly,
Yeah.
I had planned on writing another draft because I was still kind of embarrassed about the feedback on it, but I don't really have time, so I just put it up.
No, that was great. That was
fun.
That was amazing.
It got some good comments. I think David Anderson left a good
Well,
message up there.
David is great.
And I really love the new graphic work you've been doing, Ryan, for the posts in the blog.
Oh,
kind of cartoony look, like comic book look.
Oh, yeah.
For making those featured images. That's really cool. I like that.
Thank you. Yeah, it was fun.
I did a Tuesday Tunes about A Beautiful Darkness, the soundtrack
review of that
for the story of Hellraiser and Hellbound Hellraiser. So I think Lito Velasco liked the review a lot. He left a very grateful comment there, and it was my pleasure to do it. So I advise you all to listen to A Beautiful Darkness because it's really it's like Christopher Young in an alternate dimension.
Yeah.
You don't get to hear the score like you should in the documentary for I guess many reasons.
And I was just thinking that same thing too. Is you hear loops of a small section of a song played throughout the interviews, but it's not the same as listening to the soundtrack.
Yeah, because when I have a hard copy of it because I contributed to his Indigo campaign, and I was listening to it in my car when I'm driving, around, and it just has, you get sucked into that Hellraiser world,
Sure.
Thinking about, those characters with just, like you said, Jose, it's like a different, kind of like Christopher Young, and a different kind of alternate universe or something like that.
Yeah. It's great. It's great.
It does a good job of combining something old and adding something new to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so go check out our blog, read all those reviews, because that's, we make these reviews for you guys. So let us know what you think of them and if you agree or disagree.
We're talking about tonight again, tales of love, lust, and everything in between. So I kind of feel like this book sort of slipped out there, and not a lot of people are talking about it.
Yeah.
I think that it's not getting the praise that it deserves. I mean, you wrote actually in your review, Rob, that you liked it better than Scarlet Gospels.
Yeah. And I mean, I love that book, but it was much better than Scarlet Gospels.
But if you look at the critical praise, it's like this one's not even getting talked about, and Scarlet Gospels is of course all over the place, but
I've not seen any other reviews.
Yeah. Yeah, which is a shame.
I did go look for some. But
I think this kind of speaks to what Jose has been saying, often on our podcast, that sometimes these things maybe shouldn't be limited releases.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this book, I'm looking at this book is from Subterranean Press, and I was trying to figure out exactly what date this book came out, and...
Yeah, mine just says 2015, but I don't have a month.
I can't figure out the exact date that this came out, but I think it might have come out in December of last year.
Yeah.
They said that it was going to be put out in early 2016, but I think this book started shipping in December. And so I'm looking at Amazon, for example. There was only one review about this book. And like you were saying, Ryan, this book, the trade non-limited... edition is only 1,000 copies, and then there's a lettered edition of 26 signed copies, bound in a 3-piece case and housed in a custom tray case. And there's a limited edition of 224 signed numbered copies, bound in a 3-piece cloth case, housed in a custom slipcase. And of course, the tray that I'm holding is just cloth bound hardcover.
That's what I have too, and that's kind of the shame, because as we're talking about this, we're promoting something that maybe people can't even buy.
Yeah, you're
I think it's still available, because I think, for example, Amazon's still selling the hardcover, but there's already like 10 used. Wow, that's surprising. I'm looking at the page, and wow.
I think it's weird that people buy books and just get rid of them still. I mean, that's why you would get a Kindle or something.
Sure, yeah. Maybe they just bought it, and I met a lot of people who would just buy books, read them, and just sell them again because they just want to get money to buy more books. But yeah, so tonight again, 160 pages. And apparently it came out, the date on Amazon actually says November 30th, 2015. And I think this is not entirely accurate.
Well, that could be, but they didn't ship it to us any time close to that. It was probably more like the end of December.
Yeah, I got it before Christmas, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, which is okay.
I had my review up on December 30th.
Oh, is that when?
Yeah, I had
but you read it and mine hadn't even arrived yet when I think you had your review up. Because being in Alaska, I get like 3 more days I think they sent it media mail. That's what the problem I had. So I was like a week and a half later than you guys.
That's the one that has the least priority for UPS.
Yeah.
So here it is. It was announced in October of last year by Subterranean Press, and they said, tonight again marks Clive Barker's first collection since the Books of Blood over 25 years ago. It contains more than 30 primarily erotic short stories and vignettes, most of them previously unpublished, along with explicit illustrations by the author in his signature style, I'll say.
Yeah.
As an exploration of extremes in lush prose and evocative images, tonight again is not to be missed by Clive's many fans. Yeah, I agree with that. And again, I just want to point out that the non-limited edition is just 1,000 copies. And I'm pretty sure that there's more than 1,000 people out there who want to buy this book.
Yeah, I think that all Clive Barker fans should read this. And I mean, it's probably the length of Mr. Begone, but that had much wider distribution than this book.
Sure.
I don't know. One thing, I guess, one complaint that I had is that I sort of expected the illustrations to be drawings that he did for those stories as he was writing them, but they seem like more like they're random illustrations that sort of have the same theme as whatever that story is that's opposite it.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think that's accurate.
I think there was one story that was The Multitude. That was directly kind of the picture of that was directly related to that story.
Yeah.
The tattoo guy sitting on the rock.
Well, and that was also something that happened with the Licks and Kissoon in the Great and Secret Show. He did that with the Licks because he wasn't to do this magic. He wasn't allowed to touch himself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Was it the Licks? No, it was Bugs. That was Bugs also.
Yes,
it was the magic to make the Licks. He had to use the Bugs to ejaculate.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I forgot about that detail.
Yeah.
It's kind of a gross thing.
Yeah. Well, the Licks were really disgusting too.
Yeah.
So that was shit and ejaculation, right?
Yeah. And so they looked like long faceless snakes.
Yeah.
Made out of crap.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Some bit of humor, I think, on Clive's part there.
Yeah.
Doing that.
So, I started reading Clive's tonight again. I was sitting in the couch, and my wife Sarah was reading I think it was a book called Clockwork Angels or Clockwork Lives. So I was just listening to a soundtrack, and all of a sudden 70 pages just flew by, and I was like, wow, I'm pretty amazed at this book. And of course, the funny thing was my wife was looking over my shoulder, and she was looking at the illustrations, and she was like,
yeah.
What are you reading?
Illustrations are pretty explicit,
What
but
is
of course, for people who know Clive, this is what he usually does, and he does a lot of this stuff in books and signings and stuff like that. So it's basically a lot of nudes, a lot of penises.
Yeah.
And this book mixes poetry and prose, which I think Ben Mears edited this book, apparently, and
very well done on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it doesn't say that for a fact. It's dedicated to him, and I think we kind of assumed that, and we were going to get to the bottom of his, all the work that he did for this book. But if he had come on,
sure. And it's overall design of the book is amazing, and it's printed in very nice paper, and it's in 2 colors, and it has some color illustrations inside with glossy paper and full color illustrations. There's at least 3 of those, maybe 2 that I can see here that I can recall.
Yeah.
The other ones are either black and white or black and blood red, like I would say.
And I suppose if someone were to wait for the possible paperback coming out, maybe the illustrations would get left out the way they did with Abarat, which would be a shame.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. The illustrations add to the story and things.
And there are even a few paintings too.
Yeah,
which is really amazing. And the two color thing wasn't necessary, but it's really nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the Subterranean Press describes this as being a book printed in 80-pound paper, and I think the font is Finch. I think that's what they say on the website for typography aficionados out there.
Yeah, that's cool.
And it's really beautiful. I really enjoy this book. Some of the sexuality in here is pretty graphic, so it's not a book for
kids.
I would say it's not a book for kids, right?
But it's never nasty though, and that's what I was. It's not a sleazy book, I would say.
Right.
At all.
It's not meant to.
He doesn't.
The purpose of these stories. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say the purpose of these stories is definitely not titillation. It's more like he approaches sexuality in a very poetic manner.
Mm-hmm.
That is not sleazy. Like you
say.
I think he sort of evokes the magic of sexuality.
Yeah.
In a way that other writers don't.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a perfect way of saying it. I mean, the book is like, the opening cover. It's almost like when you open it, you're going into the book. That's kind of like a sexual metaphor in itself.
Yeah.
the cover painting is almost like this guy, some of the people complained about the cover, but I thought the cover was very interesting because it's kind of inviting you to,
It looks like a detail from a bigger illustration.
Yeah.
And what did you guys think of the title? I mean, they picked the first story in the anthology to make the title of the book.
So this story had been published before, right? In one of those anthologies with other authors. I think.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I never got that one, but
I was trying to remember which one it was.
It's the one about his. He opens his. People open his chest up and lick his heart, I think.
Yeah, that's it. But this came out in a book that I purchased, I think, on Kindle. And I forgot exactly which book that was. But I had read this story before. I like it. I like the title. I think the title is a perfect choice for this because Tonight Again...
So Tonight Again and Dolly, I think, were both... Going back on what you said, were both ones that had been published before.
Sure, yeah.
But I think those might be the only ones.
Also, that Touch the Rod poem. I think I had read this before somewhere, maybe on Aberrad.
Oh,
or some other book. I don't know.
Or it might have been in an Illustrator book, or
I don't have that. So.
Oh, okay.
But most of these are completely unpublished. So that's the good part.
The title, going back to what you were saying about the title, I liked it because it kind of hints at the what goes on at night, the kind of sexual kind of feelings we have, that we go into. It's kind of mysterious. I like it, the title, because it has a mysterious quality to it.
For me, it kind of reminded me of like rock albums where they pick the story or they pick the song they like the best and make that the name of the album.
Oh yeah.
Hey, the title could be worse. It could be called Headache Again. Just joking. But yeah, I agree with what Rob said. Yeah, Tonight Again. It's like Tonight Again. It's the time for love. It's what people do. To
I mean, all these stories are set at night, or I think they are.
Mm-hmm.
I found that theme as I was reading the stories.
Some of these stories are pretty short, but I think that's even harder to make a good short story the shorter it is, because you really have to give it enough substance that it won't seem like, oh, okay, that's just a short story that didn't go anywhere. But Clive Barker's short stories in this one are very, very good.
Yeah.
Some of them are kind of like, they remind me of like confessions in a way. They're written in a sort of confession style, like Tit, which is it's like just basically a 1.5 page text where Clive is just talking. Clive, or whatever character it's supposed to be, that narrates the story. It's just talking about breasts and what sort of, the function of the breast, and the breast is source of enjoyment or sensuality, and, things you can do with breasts. And it doesn't really go anywhere, but at the same time, it's very entertaining. And a lot of these short stories are like that. And so I had a lot of very good favorites here.
Two views from a window. It even shows the sexuality from a dog's point of view, how he feels about,
Yeah.
Hold. I thought that was cool.
I only figured it out that they were dogs when I was kind of like halfway through the story, and I was like, they don't sound like people. They're starting to sound more like dogs.
I thought one was an old man and the other was a dog.
Or that.
I thought it was just.
Or an old dog and another dog. So.
That's true. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, I thought one was an old man and one was a dog also.
Okay. Oh.
And if as you're reading the story. When the dog is talking, the man doesn't really respond to him in a way that says he heard what he said.
Oh, okay.
Kind of like when Garfield is talking to John, you can't, you can never really prove that they're having a conversation.
That's a good point. Yeah,
had one of the best lines. The ending of the line was from the dog's point of view, because I don't want to spoil what happens in the story, but the last line was, "What a fucking life. Still, I mustn't complain. At least I have his soiled underwear to sleep on tonight.
Yeah.
Bliss.
Yeah. Yeah, the story Afraid, I think that one was published in another anthology somewhere, because I remember having read that before.
Sure, I think so. I think I have this on Kindle, too, in another anthology. Afraid is really, really good.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
It's very Clive Barker, if I can use that as an adjective, because this is the kind of stuff that Clive Barker creates. It's creatures who aren't exactly human, but at the same time, they're more than human, and they're magnificent in their inhumanity.
Yeah.
And so you change yourself to be with them.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like in Afraid, she's giving up the life she had before to be with this mysterious creature that she already had believed was human.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like Cabal, too, with Laurie, joining Boone at the end.
Oh, well, definitely.
It's a good parallel there, yeah. One of the things that I really liked was the first larger story in the anthology.
Craw?
Craw.
Yeah. That was
Me too. For me, I mean, I thought Tonight Again was good, but it was a little opaque, I guess. But Craw was a little more accessible and a little more of like an actual, story with a beginning, a middle, and an end.
It reminded me of the same sort of universe as Mr. Bacchus and his Traveling Circus.
Yeah.
In a sense, because it's this world where there's people, there's farms, and it's in the countryside, but then there's also miraculous creatures that we don't know where they come from. They come from the other side of the wall.
Yeah.
And that other side of the wall is so symbolic. Well, he does call it Craw a fable, so it is a fable.
Yeah.
But I thought that story was really, really fascinating. I could see it almost like as an animated cartoon painted in the style of Clive Barker. That would have been awesome.
Yeah.
Actually, bringing a good point up on that. I'd love to see this. I think this whole book would be kind of cool as an animated film.
Yeah, an animated anthology of stories. That would have been a great thing.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite stories were Craw, Afraid, Martha. Another Genesis is another good favorite of mine in this book. Mr. Fred Cody professes his undying love for his woman Sylvia. That's like the largest title I've ever seen.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But it works so well for the story.
It did, yeah. If we're being deliberately vague about the stories, it's because we really don't want to spoil it for anybody.
Yeah. And they're really short, so it's hard to talk too much about them without spoiling stuff.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
There was another good one. Did y'all like The Phone Call? That was a good one.
Can you remind me what was going on in that one?
It was a phone sex conversation between a man and talking to a a person that, her business's life is doing sex phone conversations. But what I liked about it was, again, I'll just touch on the theme of what I liked about it, is that it shows how women are powerful too. That women don't. Oh, I don't want to say this because it'd give it away, but it's just basically how it showed, that women are independent, strong creatures in themselves, and I thought that was really cool. Touched by Clive.
From other stories, like, I mean, if you go back in time,
he writes very strong female characters. If y'all know this. I mean, when I've gotten back into it, he writes really strong female characters, and like from Weave World, what's her name?
Tesla? Or no, not Tesla.
Susanna?
Susanna, yeah. Tesla was The Great and Secret Show.
You've got
she has
Lori.
the menstruum power.
Yeah.
And
she's going to menstruate all over you. God, that's awful. I'm sorry. But
I'm eating steak tonight, and I got that.
Ever since in literature, there has been certain examples of women using their sexuality as a source of power. I think one of the most commonly known ones is Aristophanes' Lysistrata, where there's a war going on and the women decide that they're going to stop having sex with their men until the war stops, and it works. So that's one of the stories that proves that women can use their sexuality as a source of power and control. It's funny because I think it's a Spike Lee movie called Chirac.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's also kind of a modern remake of Lysistrata.
Yeah, but it's in Chicago, right?
Right, and there's like gang violence going on, and the women decide to stop. I haven't seen the movie, but I've read the synopsis of it. So, and the phone call is kind of like that, Rob. I would agree. The guy is flirting with her, but she's also kind of in control of the flirting here, and she can take it and give it back.
Yeah.
So that's a good one.
Yeah, and what's interesting is I've heard in interviews or read in an interview with Clive Barker before where people thought, when it was like right after Sacrament when he had come out being gay publicly and people were saying, well, how are you going to be able to write female characters or how are you going to be able to write relationships between men and women? And he said, I've had girlfriends before, and I think that his past work proves that I don't think he had anything to prove. But obviously this is another story where that just totally shows that he gets this dynamic.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, when he did his interview for The Advocate, when he came out, he did say that he thought of himself as like a spiritual bisexual, and that he did have like relationships with women.
Yeah, that's I think that's the one I was thinking of.
Yeah, there's a page at clivebarker.info, Revelations website. If you go to clivebarker.info/sex.html, there's a whole page about sex and sexuality in Clive Barker's work.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I'm going to add this to the show notes.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'd like to see that.
So,
another big part about this book that I loved, I don't know about y'all, it made me revisit my sexual history as a person as I was thinking about it.
Yeah.
And, things like how I grew up and how I've grown as a person looking at sex and feeling more comfortable about it. And, because I've grown up in the Bible Belt, man. They don't like this kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And, if you think, you have to think, in an ordered manner, and I don't think ordered. And I thought that was, Clive was just, kind of saying with this book that it's okay to have these kind of feelings. You're a human being.
Yeah.
It's okay to partake in your whatever desires you have.
Yeah. As long as you're not hurting anyone else.
Yeah, not hurting anybody.
Yeah. So it's interesting that you were saying that you grew up in the Bible Belt, and in America there's still some legislation about that can try to control what people do in the privacy of their home. Like the Michigan Senate just passed a bill punishing sodomy with 15 years prison. And the Supreme Court ruled anti-sodomy laws unconstitutional in 2003. So still the states are trying to push these things forward, and it's like...
Yeah, who elects these people? Why are they wasting everybody's time? That's and tax money. It's crazy.
Yeah, it really is.
It's ridiculous. But in any case...
Even if they make those laws, who's going to enforce them?
Right. I mean, in the privacy of your own home, I guess if nobody sees it, and when I mention sodomy laws, I'm not just talking about,
gay
literal sodomy, but also like oral sex would punish
oral sex,
15 years in prison. So then of course, it's not for everyone, but at the same time, it's not that uncommon. So I'm not trying to get into like a discussion about that, but it's ridiculous that legislators are trying to...
Those same legislators probably pay prostitutes to do that.
Yeah, they do. They do, probably.
Hypocrisy there. So
and the hypocrisy is horrible in that department. Yeah. He even touches on I can't remember the story, but he even touches on that in one of the stories. I can't remember it, though.
Sure, there's several instances of this. This sexuality is it goes from nuns to gay sex to men with women to fantasy creatures with women.
Yeah.
You get it all.
Well, and Dolly, right? It's about a woman whose personal life is just horrible.
Yeah,
and she sort of takes it on her own, and kind of takes over her own life.
Absolutely, yeah. Dolly, I thought, without giving away the final twist, it's really interesting, and I was a little depressed when I was reading that story, but it ends up on a very, very happy note. So that made it up.
Yeah, and it's interesting because in any other story from anybody else, a person winding up alone is not a happy ending.
No.
Mm-hmm.
But it was for that character.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just quickly enumerate the stories in this book. Even though it's a short 160-page book, there's plenty of stories.
Yeah.
So it's Tonight Again, I Love You, A Fable, Afraid, Moved, I Imagine You, If the Pen is the Penis, which is a fun title.
That was a great poem.
Touch the Rod, Martha, Tit, The Freaks. The Freaks was really weird.
I'm trying to remember. What was that one again?
It's about that woman that likes to go down amongst the freaks and partake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey.
There's Cruelty, Dolly, The Collection, What May Not Be Shown, Two Views from a Window, which is that one with the dog, Men in the Aisles of Supermarkets.
Yeah.
That was a curious one.
Yeah.
A Blessing, Unrequited, Another Genesis, Inside Out, also subtitled Wasteland, I Have My Art, Aurora, Whistling in the Dark, The Common Flesh, Mr. Fred Cody professes his undying love for his little Sylvia, The Phone Call, The Multitude, A Monster Lies in Wait, An Incident at the Nunnery, and The Genius of Danny Dan. When I was reading The Genius of Danny Dan, I was wondering, of course, only Clive can answer this, but if this was about someone that he knew in real life or if it was about his own personality as a young man. Because I could see Clive being Danny Dan when I was reading this story.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the story, that Books of Blood story, Age of Desire, is a lot is a lot like this philosophy of Danny Dan.
That story would have been like really fitting into this book if it wasn't so big and so long. But there's a graphic novel for the Age of Desire that I actually haven't read yet.
That's very good.
Oh, you have it?
Yeah.
That was published later in black and white. Published later than when it was actually made, right?
Right.
I think it was originally supposed to be done by Epic during that whole run when they were doing the whole
or Eclipse, I think.
Yeah, Eclipse.
Yeah.
And it got lost, or there was some kind of,
Eclipse went under.
Yeah.
Amazing book. In some ways, I agree with what Rob said, that he enjoyed it, or, did you say you enjoyed it more than Scarlet Gospels?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. I thought this was
they're two different. They're two different books. One's a fun kind of, you're seeing two characters that you love, from the Clive Barker universe come together for a fun time. It's a fanboy kind of geeky thing going on there. Mm-hmm. But this one's more personal, and you can tell it's, he's got something to say. I'm not saying he doesn't have anything to say in Scarlet Gospels. There's definitely things he did.
But it's also sort of a glimpse back through the decades of Clive Barker's life.
Yeah.
Because we don't know when all of these stories were written. I mean, probably some of them are written or recent, but maybe some of them are years old. We don't really know.
Could have wrote those back in when he was doing the theater, the Doghouse Theater,
Yeah.
Because I don't think he doesn't throw away much. It sounds like the way he'll talk.
Yeah.
I think a perfect companion for this book would be Chiliad, A Meditation, because that book also felt very personal.
Mm-hmm. I've not read that yet. I've got it, but I've not read it.
Oh, I liked it a lot.
Oh, cool.
It's very short, very small, but very personal to Clive because he wrote it when he was coming out of a depression. And it has the same fable-like story telling to it that some of these stories in Tonight Again have. So I would advise people to read Chiliad, A Meditation. If they haven't.
Yeah. That's a good point. And I think that's, one good thing about these small releases like this is maybe that these would never have been released at all if they couldn't do them in, like this and Tortured Souls and Chiliad and what's that Seraphim Inc. one? First Tales. Yeah. I think it's amazing that we get access to these. That these things are coming out. We used to just have 3-4 years between books, and that was it. We just had to wait.
Yeah.
I read Afraid from this book. The first time I read it was from Horrorology.
Yes, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It's got a cover he did for it too, right?
Yeah. That's a great cover.
Yeah, Horrorology, edited by Stephen Jones and illustrated by Clive Barker.
Yeah.
I'm going to do a review for that, hopefully next week. And
that'd be awesome. Yeah. I only read Afraid. I didn't read the other stories in there yet.
Right. I've read just 1 or 2 of those, but I need to finish this. I also have, I forgot to mention this when we were talking about the things we've done, but I have a Midian Unmade review ready to go out. So I'm just gonna post that in the blog next week.
Okay.
I know it's been a while.
Speaking of reviews, since it's Paul Kane listens to this, I'll be getting your new short story, Snow, pretty soon. So I'll do a review of that as well. That was great. They did a launch party for that online on Facebook, and it was very fun. I actually won something.
Yeah,
for writing the most gross line or something like that. Quote. I can't remember what it was, but I won some kind of. I can't remember what it was.
That was like a picture of Snow White throwing up in the toilet with all the dwarves around her.
No, I think
there wasn't.
It was about an elderly lady getting a sponge bath or something.
It was. I can't remember. It had something to do with if I can find it, I'll post it in the show notes.
Oh God, okay, yeah,
it's pretty foul.
It's pretty foul, yeah. But I read it. I think I remember reading it. You said something like you had worked at a retirement home.
Yeah, I worked at a retirement home.
So it involves old ladies and crusty things. Anyway, So back to the book. What you guys want to say? Anything else about it?
Really, I don't. Spoiling it for any.
Yeah, I can't recommend it enough. I mean, I think that it's you're really kind of dipping into Clive Barker's mind. Probably more than Scarlet Gospels. I mean, Scarlet Gospels was a deliberate story written the way he wanted it. But this is this is just a series of short sort of slices of Clive's philosophy.
Yeah.
I want to touch on a note that I'm reading here from Rob. I really enjoy your notes. You were talking about earlier about the cover of the book, and that people have been complaining about the cover image being poor. I guess because it's just black and then there's a square with a small sketch. And I enjoy what you were saying here, that the cover is very inviting, with a picture of a character smiling curiously. And you just made me look at it, and I realized that, he is smiling, isn't he?
Yeah. It's almost like, there's something sexual about it. His smile, too.
Yeah.
There's kind of erotic.
I'll have to take a look at that again, because I put the dust jacket away while I was reading it, so it wouldn't get bent up.
And it's just says kind of open me, or there's kind of a sexual, subtext to the cover.
Hey, everybody is a book of blood, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was just talking about, for tonight again, a reason I liked it was because I enjoy how, Barker, he used imagery and metaphors of death to feel alive. Mm-hmm. For example, having a character cut himself open and, having his innards and having his Mars lengthen.
Yeah, yeah. Very symbolic. It's like you give yourself, you give your heart to someone.
Yeah.
And in a way, I wonder if he's talking about his fans.
Oh.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
I
never realized that. That could be true, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in a way, he's sort of given up some of his health for fans. I mean, the way he doesn't sleep and he just keeps on writing. And
didn't you say he was kind of... I wasn't around at this time, but weren't people kind of rude to him about writing the Scarlet Gospels and getting it done?
People
care about your health problems. And
people were pushing him constantly.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that might have been more hurtful than that, and not just for Clive, but also for some of his fans, myself included, to some extent, is when people started coming up with that idea that some parts of the Scarlet Gospels may have been written by someone else. Like, some people were actually saying that most of the Scarlet Gospels was written by someone else. And I was like, that's ridiculous, because me and Ryan were there, and we saw like 5 or 6 or 7 binders of stuff written by Clive Barker for the Scarlet Gospels. And it's kind of ridiculous to think that with all that material that he would have to rely on someone to write stuff for him. Especially because Clive writes everything by hand first.
Yeah, and I think the challenge there was compiling all of that stuff into one story without making it feel like stuff was left out.
Yeah, but I could see how sometimes Clive would think that his fans are a little demanding. Although, to be honest, Clive has also been a little procrastinating in the past. I don't want to come across as being another one of those people who says that, but...
Yeah, and it's not so much procrastinating, it's that some new idea hits him. Yeah, and then it's like, okay, well, no more Cabal 2 because I'm working on the Great and Secret Show now.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like Clive really needs assistance all the time to be able to help make sense of the chaos that is his piles of drawings and manuscripts that we saw everywhere, like couches like covered in drawings.
Well, and he had a deal to turn in an Abarat book, right? And he wrote an entire draft and threw it in the garbage. And then he wrote Mr. Begone. Yeah. And that was like not part of the agreement.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that Rob, you were talking about earlier before you had this as a note, he said that Clive also touches on a primal fear of letting people into your weird little worlds. And if I can mention something, it's that, especially in terms of sex and sexuality, it's a very private thing for a lot of people. Yeah. For the majority of people, it's a very private thing that we do. And, people would be embarrassed to say their fantasies out loud. I mean, because we're afraid to be judged. I would say. You're afraid that people are going to judge you for it. And in this book, I can say it's very open. And Clive, if he worries about people judging him, it's not apparent. Because when you read this book, like I was saying, there's sex between men, sex between fantasy creatures and humans. There's sex between inanimate objects and humans. And it's all sorts of fantasies here, but at the same time done in a very classy way, a very
mature
kind of way.
A very mature way.
Yeah. It's spoken. Speaking of sex in a matter-of-fact way, takes away the embarrassment out of it and turns it into
casual and
what it is. It's just a normal part of the human psyche.
And it kind of exposes a weakness in all of us to. Why is it so much more okay to talk about somebody getting decapitated in a movie than sex?
Yeah.
Especially in American cinema.
Mm-hmm. Where you can see, like in the last X-Files episode, the Trash Man. I don't know if you saw that, but there's instances of the monster is like ripping people apart, like ripping their arms off the sockets and ripping their head out of their torso with the spinal column. But if you show a nipple on TV, oh my God, everybody loses their head.
Yeah. Are you talking about like the Super Bowl thing? And there was actually a
for example, that Jackson sister, I forgot her name, Janet Jackson, right? With Justin Timberlake.
Yeah.
That famous halftime show where her nipple came out, and it was covered with a pasty, for God's sake.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
But they actually sort of parodied that on the recent episode of The Muppets. Miss Piggy's pigtail came out of the back of her dress because she had a low back in her dress, and her pigtail came out, and the network was getting upset, and she had to do a public apology.
That's awesome
for being a pig. That's really good. But I'll bring up one last thing about what I... Oh, sorry.
Did you just play the piano?
No, that was the sound from I got a Facebook message.
Oh, okay.
It did sound like a.
Yeah, I thought you just rested your arm on a piano key or something.
What I thought was, the length of the stories was, they were very short, as we've mentioned. But I was wondering if Clive was consciously or subconsciously comparing penis sizes here on a metaphoric level with the length of the stories, and how it doesn't matter how long the penis or the story is, but how you use it to satisfy the person you love or reader on an emotional level.
I
awesome.
don't. Yeah, I don't know that that's true, but I think that he would love that question.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I think that's a great parallel that you came up with there, because it is so true. Like, these stories are short, but they're so good. It's like, I thought I was going to be disappointed. Sometimes I would see a story and be like, oh, it's just like a page or a page and a half, and I'm like, is this going to be any good? And then I read it, and I'm like, you know what? I'm glad I read that. That really added to my enjoyment, and it was really, really, really good.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not how big it is; it's what you do with it, I guess.
Yeah.
True. Very true.
Which I guess you could also say about the whole book too.
Because it's a tiny book. It's, tiny.
It's like the book is like its own little. It's like a lover.
Yeah.
It's like it can be kind of symbolically,
like
you can attach yourself to this, almost like be married to it.
It's like, it reminds me of those bedside books, like a diary or like a prayer book, almost something small that you keep on your bedside table and you go back to every once in a while.
Yeah,
for comfort. So I really enjoy this book. I cannot recommend it enough.
Well, I hope it hasn't gone out sold out yet to where people can purchase it. I hope there's enough copies still for people that want it.
Yeah,
I know. Like you were talking about, it was used on. I think I made a post yesterday on the Facebook page of our site that there were like 12 copies available of it on Clive Barker's site, but they were like $200 because I think it was like signed, and because he was doing he did personal drawings of them inside. But I'm pretty sure there's still some on Amazon, and that's goes for only $30, I think. Yeah, and is there a Kindle version? I don't.
Yes.
I didn't. Is there? Okay.
There is a Kindle version. I can tell
that'll
you.
Never go away. So
it's actually, the Kindle version is just $5.99. So
yeah.
It's perfect if you don't want to spend too much money.
There's a Kindle version of Tonight Again?
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it is. So I don't know if there's going to be a paperback. Probably not. It would be ideal if there was a wider run paperback.
Probably do.
Or if the hardcover was less limited, that would be fine too. But yeah, I mean, I guess, what is it, $40 or $50? I can't remember how much we paid for this. It was 30? This was 30?
Yeah, it's only $30.
That's an amazing deal.
On Amazon, it actually is $28.43 Prime.
Jeez.
So.
Yeah, that is an amazing deal. Get them before they're sold out.
Dude.
In fact, there's 29 new on Amazon for $18.42.
So I guess sort of the limited release nature of these things is also the reason that they don't advertise them very much, because it's like you buy them all and then, they're gone and that's it.
Yeah.
I think that happened with the Tortured Souls Legends of Primordium, right?
Yeah.
It really sold out really quickly in a matter of days.
And the thing about having it on Amazon was the danger of not getting your copy. I had pre-ordered a copy long in advance, but people from Subterranean Press that ordered it from their site we're going to get their copies first. So I got an email saying to me, we don't have this in stock. We might not, get it in, basically. And then, but I went to Subterranean Press, and actually they had like 3 copies left, so I ordered one real fast.
Yeah, Amazon in some ways is kind of.
I know
they're kind of cheesy that way. I don't like that they feel like they need to put. They need to make a page for everything that exists on the earth, and whether they can actually sell it to you or not.
Yeah, it just makes it sound like it's always going to be there.
Yeah, like we're the store of the world, and we have everything, whether they really do or not. I don't know. They're kind of the Walmart of bookstores now.
Yeah, I agree.
Did you know that Amazon actually now has real bookstores?
Yeah, I went to one when we were in Seattle a couple of weeks back.
Oh, cool. I think that was the first one. I think that might be one of the
in the University of Washington district.
Oh. Are they going to start having those around the country now? I
guess. I mean, it was okay. It was weird, though. It was part like an Apple store because they had like the Amazon Echo and the Kindle Firebox and the tablets and the Kindles all set up so that people could play with them and stuff.
Yeah.
So we went in there and Joey like sat down in front of a Kindle Fire game console and started playing some Lego Star Wars game. And we're like, hey, Joey, we want to look at the rest of the store. I can't sit here with you and watch you play video games. He goes, this is what I want to do.
Yeah, but did you know that they the way they stock things is based on algorithms from Amazon? Like, what's most popular with people in that general area, that's what they will stock in the store.
Oh, wow.
It's a smart stock kind of process that they have now.
Huh. They might as well have robots running the store. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was okay. When I look at Amazon.com, I like to look at used stuff, and they had nothing that was used. It was all brand new.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was okay.
Actually, funny thing is, tomorrow I'm going to go to a used book sale in Arizona. It's called the VNSA Used Book Sale. So I'm looking forward to that. It opens really early, and I'm going to go there tomorrow morning. I'm going to be keeping an eye out for Clive Barker stuff, although I'm sure I might have everything. So
yeah, I always like to find Clive Barker stuff too, whether I need it or not.
Yeah,
and if it's cheap enough, we can give them away or do contests and stuff with them.
Yeah.
So, here in Nashville, a lot of people don't give up. I mean, at my used bookstore I go to, nobody really. You don't see much Clive Barker stuff.
Yeah,
usually a lot of people like to keep it.
It's funny. You go to the horror section, and it's always like V.C. Andrews. There's like two rows of V.C. Andrews, and then it skips over to somebody else after.
You got Stephen King usually, and Dean Koontz.
Yeah,
and Anne Rice.
Yeah, doesn't Stephen King have like a new book that came out recently?
I think so. Yeah, I saw it.
I saw that on Barnes and Noble the other day.
Yeah,
isn't there like a sequel to Christine or?
There's a sequel to The Shining.
Oh, yeah, that's what it is.
It's Dr. Sleep. I haven't read it yet though.
Yeah, I'm not a big. I've read a lot of the Dark Tower books, and I've read It. And I read Pet Sematary, and I think that's all I've read so far.
For It, which is better, the movie or the book?
I don't think I saw the movie.
The book. The book is good, but the movie, it was watered down for TV.
Well, the problem my problem with Stephen King is that it's always like there's so much description and flashbacks.
Yeah, it's very the first. You're right. The way you tell that story, you start with the adults, what their situation is in life, and then he starts going into the flashbacks and goes back and forth and back and forth.
And for It, he had a bunch of like 12-year-old kids needed to have sex with each other to do some magic ritual, or it was weird.
Yeah, that got cut out real fast at the TV.
That's not usual for Stephen King to make sex in his movies or his books. I guess from what I've learned, but
yeah. Well, I mean, it wasn't graphic, but just the idea of it is kind of icky.
It's funny that Clive Barker was always he always mixed sex with horror right from the start, from the Books of Blood, and maybe even before that. I think when Clive Barker was still living in England and before he wrote the Books of Blood. I think one of his formative experiences with censorship was that he did some illustrations, some illustrations for like this magazine. I'm not sure if it was a gay magazine, an underground gay magazine, and the people who ran the magazine actually, they either got arrested or got charged for obscenity or something. So the magazine was destroyed, and Clive Barker wasn't happy about that because he had made some artwork for them, and I think if you read the Shadows in Eden book, he has a whole chapter on what he thinks about censorship.
Oh, yeah. Man, I haven't read that book since it came out.
I haven't read it at all yet. I need to.
Oh, it's wonderful. I love the Shadows in Eden book. I keep going to it.
Is it just what is it, like a collection of like articles he talk or him talking?
It's like essays and interviews.
Okay.
Yeah, essays, interviews, introductions that were written for books, and stuff like that. And then on the sides of the pages and on, every other page has like some doodle from Clive Barker.
Oh, cool.
And it's pretty cool.
And that painting on the inside cover is crazy. I don't know who did that.
Yeah. I wonder if Clive has that in his house.
Yeah, maybe so.
So in an interview with Clive Barker, and I just want to bring up some more sex and sexuality stuff about Clive Barker to balance out the off-topic stuff we've been discussing.
Yeah.
But in an interview with Clive Barker for Science Fiction Eye number 4, August 1988, and I'm reading this from the Revelations website, he once said, when we're talking about the life of the body in the sort of death context, the violence context, in the corruption context, I think very often we're also talking about sexual feelings. So often sex is about obsession. Often horror fiction is about obsession. So often sex is about coming to terms with feelings that you're almost out of control with. Horror fiction is very often about having control or losing control. Sex is always about the body. Horror fiction is over and over again about the body. The French have the term petite morte for the post-orgasmic blues. The French have a point. There's a kind of sense that in the moments of love, anything is possible. And in the moments after, nothing is. That's like a slap in the face.
Well, and that theory also is that every time you have an orgasm, it takes one day off of your life.
I never heard that one.
That's why it's called. That's why it's called the little death.
Oh yeah, the little. I've heard that, but I didn't know.
I guess it's because I read this. I don't know who wrote this. It may have been Clive, but it's like every animal after coitus is depressed. And it's kind of true. Yeah.
You think even like a jellyfish?
I don't think jellyfish. Are they asexual? I don't know.
I don't know what they are. Yeah, that's a good point.
They're alien.
Yeah.
So go check out this book. It's really tiny, but you can't judge a book.
Full of so much, like we were talking about, so much subtext and just a lot of. You'll find so much. I mean, even though it goes into lives, you get a taste of Clive's life and his philosophies, but also you can come away with something, about yourself, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's great exploring sexuality from all these different angles, and it almost felt like finishing a book when you finishing a novel when you finish this book, even though the stories aren't related to each other.
Yeah, the theme running through them, the selection of materials that was done by Ben Mears for this book was really, really good. They really worked together as a erotic fiction book.
Yeah.
And if I can just read one last quote from Clive in kind of closing, is it not possible that our experience of the flesh, the tingle in our nerve endings, the profound feelings that sexual excitement arouses in us, should not be mostly connected with our spiritual selves? Whatever divinity made us, and I believe we were made for a great and perhaps a noble purpose, that divinity gave us the potential for physical and sensual bliss, which, when we are moved most deeply, leads us on to profound spiritual feelings. In other words, when I am at my most physical, I am reaching for the divine. So that sounds perfect, a perfect note for me to kind of, conclude the our episode about tonight again, because it is true. It's sexuality is sometimes a way to reach for the divine. So I agree with Clive on this one.
Well, that's an interesting way to think about why people would be depressed when it's over too.
Yeah. And
it's almost sort of this thing that you can't remember what it feels like, so you just have to keep doing it over and over again.
Yeah. Exactly.
Once I read this book, it was about pain perception, and it was a medical book, and I think one of the stories that they were talking about is that our brain doesn't remember certain feelings. Like, you can't remember pain. I mean, you remember that it hurt, but you can't evoke in your memory the sense of pain physically. Yeah, so kind of the same is similar for pleasure. I mean, you can remember good times you had, but you cannot remember the sensuality, the feeling of it. So I guess literature is the next best thing to put that into words, something that can be put into words.
Yeah, it was fun. I didn't know that we could talk about this book for an hour, but we did.
Yeah, we can talk about anything for an hour.
That's true.
Maybe more.
With you guys is always fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and another quick thing that Clive once said in an interview is that the only rule is that there are no rules. Let's just go for the extremes. As someone who is highly sexed and interested in sex, that's a subject I'm going to talk about. And I don't feel that I need to apologize for the fact that I think lesbian bondage is absolutely fascinating. Clive Barker, Sin Escape, January 1995. There you go, folks. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Yeah.
All right. The Clive Barker Podcast, or Barkercast, is an independent editorial fan site and podcast that is not affiliated with or under contract by Clive Barker or Seraphim Films. This podcast and site are a labor of love by the fans for the fans. News, features, and show notes for this episode can be found at www.clivebarkercast.com. Go to iTunes and please leave us a review. Reviews really help us get the word out about Clive Barker. You can also find us on Podomatic, Xbox Music Store, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, Doubletwist, Blackberry, and Pocketcast. We have a Facebook page, so come on and like our Facebook page and join the Occupy Midian group for lots of discussion about Nightbreed and other Clive Barker stuff. On Twitter, we're at BarkerCast and at Occupy Midian. Opening theme by Mark Buckle.